Nobody expected this to happen again. Just when the world thought Cardi B had finally moved on from Offset for good, one unexpected moment sent social media into absolute chaos. It started during a packed-out performance at Madison Square Garden. Thousands of fans were screaming every word back to Cardi when suddenly she said something she had been avoiding for years. The second it happened, her face changed instantly. Fans noticed it, cameras caught it, and within minutes, clips were spreading everywhere. But that wasn't even the strangest part. Only days later, Offset reportedly jumped on Instagram Live during the early hours of the morning, sparking fresh rumors that he still wasn't over the woman he spent nearly a decade chasing, losing, and trying to win back. Suddenly, fans started connecting every they could find. The accidental name drop, the late-night live stream, the history of breakups and makeups, the endless cycle that seemed impossible to escape. And that's what makes this story so fascinating. Because if you followed Cardi B and Offset from the beginning, then you already know this wouldn't be the first time everyone thought it was over, only for them to shock the world and find their way back to each other. So did Cardi accidentally reveal feelings she was trying to hide? Is Offset secretly fighting for another chance? Or is the internet seeing something that simply isn't there? Let's break down everything that happened. For years, Cardi B and Offset have had one of the most unpredictable relationships in entertainment. Every time the public thought they were finished, something happened that pulled them back into the headlines. That's exactly why the latest rumors exploded so quickly. People have seen this movie before, and many fans believe they already know how it ends. But before we get to the recent drama that has everyone talking, it's important to understand why a simple moment on stage was enough to send the internet into a frenzy. Back in 2017, Cardi B was rapidly becoming one of the biggest new stars in music. Her personality was everywhere, her fan base was growing by the day, and every move she made became a topic of conversation online. Around that same time, Offset was already established as one of hip-hop's most recognizable names through his success with Migos. When rumors first started linking Cardi and Offset together, neither of them seemed eager to confirm anything publicly. Fans noticed little clues here and there. They were seen at similar events. They appeared comfortable around each other. Social media detectives began connecting dots. Yet neither side wanted to fully reveal what was happening behind the scenes. That mystery only made people more interested. The more they tried to keep things private, the more attention they attracted. Every interview became a guessing game. Every public appearance sparked new theories. Were they together? Were they just friends? Nobody seemed to know for sure. Then, as time passed, it became clear that this wasn't a casual situation. The chemistry between them was impossible to ignore. Their personalities were completely different in many ways, yet somehow they seemed to fit together. Fans loved watching their interactions. The relationship quickly became one of the most talked-about romances in hip-hop. What nobody knew at the time was just how serious things had already become. While the public continued speculating, major developments were happening behind closed doors. The couple was building a life together away from cameras and headlines. When the truth finally came out, many people were shocked by how much had happened without anyone realizing it. Suddenly, Cardi B and Offset weren't just dating rumors anymore. They were one of the biggest power couples in entertainment. Together, they seemed unstoppable. Every appearance generated headlines. Every social media post attracted millions of views. Fans became invested not only in their careers, but also in their personal journey. They represented success, fame, and the idea that two major stars could build something meaningful despite living under constant public attention. But fame has a way of complicating everything. As their relationship became more public, pressure started building from every direction. Every disagreement became news. Every rumor became a trending topic. Every mistake became impossible to hide. And then came the controversy that changed everything. Reports began circulating that Offset had been involved in behavior that threatened the foundation of their relationship. Suddenly, social media was flooded with accusations, speculation, and endless debate. Fans wanted answers. Critics were quick to judge. The spotlight became more intense than ever. For Cardi, the situation created enormous public pressure. Millions of people were watching and waiting to see what she would do next. Would she walk away? Would she forgive him? Would their relationship survive? The entire internet seemed divided. Some believed there was no coming back from the allegations. Others argued that relationships are complicated and should be handled privately. Every new headline added fuel to the fire. What made the situation even more difficult was the fact that their personal lives were no longer just personal. Everything was happening in front of the world. Every statement was analyzed. Every reaction was dissected. Every silence created new rumors. Eventually, Cardi addressed the situation publicly, giving fans a glimpse into what she was experiencing behind the scenes. Her honesty resonated with many people because it showed the emotional reality hidden beneath the celebrity headlines. Despite everything that had happened, she made it clear that relationships are rarely as simple as outsiders think. For some fans, that was understandable. For others, it was shocking. People expected dramatic endings. They expected permanent decisions. Instead, they saw two people trying to navigate an incredibly complicated situation while millions of strangers watched from the sidelines. Then came a major turning point. Cardi announced that the relationship had reached a breaking point. The news spread instantly. Social media exploded. Entertainment outlets covered every detail. Fans flooded comment sections with opinions, predictions, and reactions. For many observers, it seemed like the final chapter. After everything that had happened, surely this was the end. At least, that's what people thought, because Offset wasn't ready to give up. What happened next became one of the most talked about public attempts at reconciliation in celebrity history. Suddenly, emotional messages started appearing. Public apologies followed. Discussions about regret, mistakes, and second chances dominated headlines. Everywhere people looked, the story was impossible to escape. Some viewers felt sympathy. Others remained skeptical, but nobody could stop talking about it. The situation reached another level when Offset made highly public efforts to demonstrate how serious he was about repairing the relationship. The gestures generated enormous attention. Supporters praised the effort. Critics questioned whether such personal matters should play out so publicly. Regardless of where people stood, one thing became clear. He wanted another chance. The question was whether Cardi would be willing to give it to him. Weeks passed. Speculation continued. Rumors spread daily. Then something unexpected happened. Signs began appearing that communication between them had improved. The tension that once dominated headlines seemed to be fading. Public appearances became friendlier. The hostility people expected wasn't as visible anymore. Fans started wondering whether the story was about to take another surprising turn. And that's exactly what made this relationship so difficult to predict. Every time people thought they knew what would happen next, Cardi and Offset would completely change the narrative. Just when everyone expected a permanent ending, hints of reconciliation started emerging. The internet once again became obsessed. Had they secretly worked things out? Was another reunion already happening? Or were fans simply seeing what they wanted to see? Those questions only became louder as the months went on. Because while the public was busy debating whether Cardi and Offset could ever recover from everything that had happened, neither of them seemed interested in following the script that everyone else had written for them. And soon, their next move would shock the entire entertainment world all over again. Just when people thought Cardi B and Offset had somehow managed to overcome the biggest challenges in their relationship, a new chapter began that looked almost like a fairy tale from the outside. The public started seeing them together more often. They appeared happier. Red carpet appearances generated massive attention. Social media clips spread everywhere. Interviews painted a picture of two people who had fought through difficult times and come out stronger on the other side. For many fans, it felt like proof that second chances could actually work. The couple looked united. They looked confident. And perhaps most importantly, they looked determined to prove their critics wrong. Everywhere they went, cameras followed. Every event became an opportunity for fans to analyze their body language, their interactions, and their chemistry. The public couldn't get enough of them. At times, they seemed almost inseparable. The relationship that many people predicted would collapse appeared stronger than ever. But behind the scenes, reality was far more complicated. Because even when a couple decides to move forward, that doesn't mean old wounds disappear overnight. Trust takes time. Healing takes time. And when your relationship exists under one of the biggest spotlights in the world, every challenge becomes harder to navigate. As months passed, Cardi occasionally spoke about forgiveness, growth, and communication. She made it clear that rebuilding a relationship required effort from both people involved. It wasn't something that happened automatically. Those comments gave fans hope. Many believed the couple had finally found stability. But stability in celebrity relationships can be deceptive. The public only sees selected moments. They see photos. They see videos. They see carefully controlled appearances. What they don't see are the private conversations, disagreements, frustrations, and emotional struggles that happen away from cameras. Eventually, cracks began appearing again. Rumors started circulating that all was not well behind the scenes. At first, most people ignored them. After everything Cardi and Offset had already survived, fans assumed they would work through any new challenges. But then something happened that completely changed the conversation. Reports surfaced suggesting the marriage was facing serious difficulties. Suddenly, the same questions returned. Were they still happy? Were they still together? Had old problems resurfaced? Once again, social media became a battlefield filled with theories and speculation. Some fans defended the couple. Others predicted another breakup. The uncertainty created endless discussion. Then came a shocking development. News broke that legal steps had been taken that suggested the relationship might be heading toward another major crossroads. For many people, it felt impossible to believe. After everything they had overcome, how could they be back in this position? The answer was simple. Relationships are complicated. Even the strongest public image cannot guarantee private happiness. As headlines multiplied, Cardi and Offset found themselves under intense scrutiny once again. Every public appearance became evidence. Every social media post became a clue. Every interview generated fresh speculation. Yet despite all the rumors, something unexpected happened. The story didn't end. Instead, the couple somehow found their way back together again. The reconciliation surprised many observers. Critics who had predicted a permanent separation were forced to reconsider. Supporters celebrated. Fans flooded social media with messages about love, growth, and second chances. For a brief moment, it seemed like the storm had finally passed. Then life moved forward. The couple continued building their family. Major milestones followed. Important moments were shared with fans. From the outside, looking in, they appeared committed to making things work. But beneath the surface, unresolved issues continued to linger. And eventually those issues would return in a way that neither side could ignore. As time went on, tension started resurfacing publicly. Accusations emerged. Social media exchanges captured attention. Old controversies returned to the spotlight. Suddenly, people who thought the relationship had stabilized were witnessing another round of public drama. The situation became increasingly difficult to follow because new claims seemed to appear every few weeks. One headline would suggest progress. The next would suggest conflict. One day, fans believed everything was improving. The next day, they believed disaster was around the corner. That unpredictability became the defining characteristic of Cardi and Offset's relationship. Nobody ever knew what would happen next, not even their most dedicated supporters. Then came another major turning point. During a public discussion, Cardi openly acknowledged that the relationship was facing serious challenges. Her comments reflected frustration, exhaustion, and the emotional weight of trying to make something work despite repeated obstacles. Those remarks resonated with many people, not because she was a celebrity, but because the experience felt relatable. Countless individuals have stayed in relationships hoping things would improve. Countless individuals have struggled with deciding when to keep fighting and when to walk away. Cardi's honesty made the situation feel human. For a moment, the headlines disappeared and people saw a woman dealing with difficult choices. Meanwhile, Offset faced criticism of his own. Questions about accountability continued to follow him. Observers debated whether enough had changed. Some believed he was making genuine efforts. Others argued that history kept repeating itself. The divide between those perspectives only grew larger over time. Eventually, the relationship reached another critical moment. This time, however, the atmosphere felt different. Past breakups often carried an element of uncertainty. Fans expected reconciliation because reconciliation had happened before. But now, there was a growing sense that something fundamental had changed. The optimism that once surrounded their future together was fading. People began wondering whether the famous cycle had finally reached its end. Was this another temporary separation? Or was this truly different? Nobody had a clear answer. Not yet. But over the following months, events would unfold that convinced many observers the relationship was entering its most serious crisis yet. And as Cardi focused on building a new future for herself, Offset would soon find himself confronting the possibility that the chapter they had spent years writing together might finally be coming to a permanent close. The developments that followed would trigger some of the biggest headlines either of them had faced in years, setting the stage for the rumors, speculation, and viral moments that would eventually bring us to the Madison Square Garden incident and the questions dominating social media today. By the time the relationship entered its later stages, everything surrounding Cardi B and Offset felt heavier, more complicated, and far more public than ever before. What used to be private arguments between two people had now become global conversations happening in real time across social media platforms. Every move they made was watched, every word was analyzed, and every silence was filled with speculation. In the middle of this constant attention, Cardi began shifting her focus towards something different. Her career, her performances, and her identity outside the relationship started taking center stage again. Fans noticed a change in energy. She seemed more independent, more focused, and less emotionally tied to the constant drama that had followed her for years. Meanwhile, Offset's presence in the narrative became more controversial. Some reports suggested he was still emotionally connected to Cardi in ways that fans could clearly see through his public behavior. Others believed he was simply struggling with the consequences of a long and highly visible relationship coming to an end. But what made this situation even more intense was the fact that neither side was fully speaking to the other publicly anymore. That silence created space for rumors. And in the world of celebrity culture, silence is never empty. It gets filled with theories. One moment would suggest closure. The next would suggest lingering attachment, and the internet would amplify every detail. Then came the wave of incidents that reignited everything. Cardi's stage performances began to carry subtle but noticeable emotional moments that fans immediately picked up on. A name slipped during a live show, a reaction that looked unplanned, a pause that felt meaningful to viewers watching closely. Even the smallest moment became headline material. Because when two people have such a long and complicated history, nothing they do is ever seen as accidental anymore. At the same time, Offset's behavior online and in public appearances continued to fuel speculation that he was still emotionally affected by the separation. Some observers described it as unresolved feelings. Others called it nostalgia. But whatever label people used, the conversation always circled back to the same question. Are they really done? That question refused to disappear. Then came the Madison Square Garden moment. During a packed performance, Cardi performed one of her older tracks that had originally been written during a time when her relationship with Offset was still strong. The song itself carried history, memories, and emotional weight that fans immediately connected to their past. For a long time, she had been careful about how she performed it. Certain parts were skipped. Certain words were avoided. Fans had noticed this pattern. But on this night, something slipped. A name she had been avoiding came out during the performance. And in that exact moment, everything changed. Her reaction was instant. A subtle facial expression. A visible pause. A split-second realization that the moment had been caught by thousands of phones in the crowd. And just like that, the internet exploded. Clips spread within minutes. Fans debated what it meant. Was it nostalgia? Was it habit? Was it emotional residue from a long relationship that never fully disappeared? Or was it simply a performance mistake being overanalyzed? As always, opinions are divided. But what made this moment different was how quickly it connected to everything else happening at the same time. Because almost immediately after the performance, another rumor resurfaced. A claim that Offset had gone live late at night, seemingly emotional, possibly addressing Cardi indirectly once again. Whether or not every detail of that live stream was accurate didn't matter to the internet. What mattered was the pattern. A long history of emotional reactions, public statements, breakups, and reconciliations. And now, a stage moment that felt symbolic to millions watching online. People began piecing together a narrative that may or may not reflect reality, but felt emotionally satisfying to believe. That somewhere beneath all the success, fame, and new relationships, the story between Cardi B and Offset was still unfinished. However, the reality was far more grounded. As time passed, it became clear that both individuals were living very different lives. Cardi had moved forward with new priorities, new experiences, and a renewed focus on her career and personal growth. Her public statements reflected distance, closure, and a desire to move beyond the cycle that once defined her relationship. Offset, on the other hand, remained a figure frequently surrounded by speculation about his emotional state, but without any confirmed indication that reconciliation was actually happening. And that distinction matters, because public perception often confuses emotional storytelling with actual reality. Just because two people share history does not mean they are still connected in the present. Just because a moment feels meaningful does not mean it signals a reunion. And just because the internet wants a story to continue does not mean it actually does. In the end, what the Madison Square Garden moment really showed was something simpler. Not a confirmation of reconciliation, not a secret message, but the lasting impact of a relationship that once defined both of their lives so deeply that even years later, small moments can still trigger massive reactions. And that is why this story continues to circulate online. Not because it is ongoing, but because it once meant everything to millions of people watching it unfold. And sometimes, that is enough for the internet to keep it alive long after it has actually ended. So what do you think really happened between Cardi B and Offset? Was that Madison Square Garden moment just a simple slip, or a sign that old emotions still exist behind the scenes? And was Offset's rumored late-night live just another internet exaggeration, or proof that this story is far from over? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one of those celebrity stories where everyone sees something different. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next update on the biggest hip-hop stories unfolding right now. And remember, in Hollywood and hip-hop, the loudest headlines are often not the full truth. Stay tuned, because the next twist can change everything again.